Hi, everyone. I'm Kathleen Kaiser, the president of the Writers and Publishers Network. And this is our sort of annual marketing panel. We had one last fall and the year before, I believe. And this year, we're going to be talking about different strategies that will help you. And what I wanted each person here on my illustrious panel to basically give us focus on one area that many authors overlook when launching their book or continually trying to promote their book. So I'm going to start with Mary White. And Mary is an author of numerous books and is also has short fiction. She's the owner and publisher of Type 18 Books and Type18Editing.com. And she's the president of the California Writers Club Orange County branch and currently is an English and writing professor. So Mary's going to talk to us about finding your readers, which I think is a very important topic because most people don't have any idea. So Mary, welcome.
Right, thank you. Hi, everyone. Really glad to be here to talk about books and reading. Is there anything better? I think not. I think the first thing we all think about when we publish our book, beyond, yay, I'm so happy, is to reach out to places like bookstores, local bookstores, and libraries. And I mean, that's a great idea, right? Because who doesn't love a bookstore and a library? But I think you also want to think about other things, to other places that you can reach out. I call it beyond the bookstore. And the way you do that is think about your book. Are there think about the basics of story building, the characters, the setting, even the plot. Are there any topics or interests that are included in your book? For example, we have an upcoming book where the main character is a gardener. So in addition to reaching out to local bookstores, we thought, why couldn't she have an event at a local gardening center or a flower shop, right? Or something like that, to botanical preserves. And all of these ideas are multifold, right? Because you can have events there. If they have a little gift shop, maybe they'll carry your book. Maybe they have a little publication or a newsletter, you can get an ad in. So it's really just thinking about your book and what other type of places you can find readers that aren't particularly reader focused. Another thing to think about is, where's your book set? Obviously, we all know we should be reaching out to our own local, area for events and media and all that kind of stuff. But maybe your book is set somewhere else. Maybe your book's set in another state. So there might be opportunities there. My young adult book actually featured sites in Arizona. So I reached out heavily in Arizona, and it had Arizona in the title. So people had an interest in that right off the bat. Or if it's, outside of the country, certainly there's people that there's interest groups for studies, there's Francophiles and things like that. So it's another thing to think about. And then after you think about the topics and interest, think about also any groups or organizations, I've already kind of touched on it, that are centered around any of these aspects. And go broad, right? So there's gardeners, obviously, and older folks tend to make up a good percentage of people that have time for these type of pursuits. So why not have a talk at a senior center, right? If they have a little bookshop, some of them are very nice senior centers, and maybe they have a little bookshop. What about an ad in a gardening magazine, as opposed to just constantly looking for book-centered things? I have another book called Bellflower. If it's centered in a certain town, especially, you can reach out to the local Chamber of Commerce, ask them for ideas where you can get out and about. And then another example of that would be, I suppose, cultural groups or some type of social group. You can obviously reach out to local festivals that support, or celebrate certain cultural groups. There's community centers centered around things like that, or publications that seem relevant. Obviously, I'll note that if it's not your culture that you're highlighting, you want to be very sensitive to where you may not be intrusive, but be sensitive and thoughtful about how you approach those kind of things. So beyond the bookstore, think of other places you can get out and about, not only with direct sales, but events, ads, anything like that. The second idea I would put forward is, more writing. It's, and it's related to the first one in that, is there anything you can write about those interests, those topics, those places? We all know that, it's a good idea to have essays and articles that you can pitch, especially right around the time your book's coming out, so your name is out there, to regular media, but also in the same vein, to special interest type publications. So having things, appear around the time of your launch is always a good idea. For example, we had a book that dealt with the history of the timber wars in the Pacific Northwest. So, of course, part of our brainstorming was thinking about eco-fiction and thinking about online publications and magazines that feature that sort of writing. And we asked our author to write something along those lines. And of course, places and things around Portland where he lives. But another thing is you don't have to continually write about the book, what inspired the book, what's in the book, which those pieces are great. But are there other elements about you that you can write about? I like dance. I go to a lot of dance shows. Even if it had nothing to do with my book, I could write a little write-up about a local dance show or a personal essay about that particular interest of mine. And you might think, why would that matter for book publicity? But any press is good press. And of course, in your bio, you're going to mention that you have a new book out, right? So I think it's partly making it fun for the author too, but the second idea would be to write more, think a lot about little pieces, not just, clickbaity things, but longer things. There's a whole range of things you could do, right? And that outside the book topic field, I would say, for an example, one of our authors is a physician. So he wrote articles like how to unstress over the holidays and things like that. So anyway, you can get out and about and have yourself appearing in, publications or local media, anything like that is a good idea. Think outside the box. And then my third little tip, I guess, is to find your tribe and make connections. Think outside, again, traditional events, traditional ways to put your book forward. And this kind of circles back to where we started, which is back to bookstores, libraries, and definitely, enrich and support your local bookstores and libraries with not only your books, but your presence maybe for an event. But where else do book-loving people hang out? Well, everywhere. But I would say book clubs are kind of an untapped thing. We all want to get with book clubs, right? But how do you do it? Well, they meet all sorts of places now. They might meet at a local restaurant, or at that senior center, or at a community center, at a church, online. All of these can be approached. You can offer them a copy of your book. I would recommend you come up with book club discussion questions that you can offer, any kind of perks you can think of. We pursued pretty hard a book club opportunity at a brewery for our author, and we just got it, and we're so excited. And I think we all want to travel to go to this book club at the brewery. So think outside the box, look for book clubs. Those are great opportunities, of course. And then as far as the network, there's no better connection than connection with other writers, because we are very creative, and you can join up with other authors, meet authors at events, at open mics, brainstorm for ways you can do joint or group events. These events, as we know, advertising, all of it is expensive. After attending so many readings myself, I sort of like when an event is more than one person and has something to offer other than a reading. I like it to be centered around a topic or something. And that's when it's fun to team up with other authors to have kind of a joint event. For instance, another author we have, her book is centered around it's inspired by a 19th century artist. Now, her book came out this year earlier. You would think maybe publicity for it is done. No. Recently, I met another author who has a book coming out next year, also dealing with 19th century, also dealing with art. Now those two authors are brainstorming maybe an event, some kind of talk at a local art gallery, right? So that's the beauty, I think, of marketing. We certainly don't view it as right when the book comes out. We're constantly looking around, trying to find opportunities and think outside the box. Author co-ops are becoming very popular. And this is when you team up with a group of authors, and it doesn't have to just be a book fair or a workshop. It can be at your local shopping center. A lot of places have these now open concept kind of food hall type situations where you can rent a table and take turns. You don't have to sit there the whole day, but if you get with maybe 6 other authors, you can sit there and talk to the public and sell each other's books. So again, meeting other authors, getting out and about in your community. And then again, all of these ideas, they're multifaceted, right? You could probably place an ad if that shopping center has a website or they have some kind of publication. Any idea you come by, it also can have multifacets to it. And it's just a matter of brainstorming. And I think the last thing I will say is make it fun. If you don't want to go out and do events, then don't make yourself, look for online opportunities and things like that. But I think it's fun to brainstorm and think of ways to get out and about and do one of the funnest things for writers, which is to talk to readers of your books.
Yes, I think writers that meet their audience and find out who their audience is are often very surprised. We do the LA Times Festival of Books, and there's 12 authors every day, and they all have different experiences with meeting people, especially ones that already have read one of their books. It's really exciting to meet your readers. So thank you, Mary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I asked Ross Roget from City Book Reviews on because a lot of authors, especially if you're writing or self-publishing, you forget about the book reviews. And book reviews are so important. I mean, yes, Amazon reviews from people who have bought your book are nice for that, but don't you want to be in bookstores? Don't you want to be in libraries? Those people look to authority, to professional book review sites, and that's where they want to see and learn about your book. Ross has one of the really, really good companies, City Book Review. They have, he started in Sacramento. We've got like San Francisco, Manhattan, LA, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Tulsa, San Diego, and now you have the new kids book buzz. So Ross, tell us about the importance of book reviews and the type of things that you see coming in since you get books every day wanting to be reviewed.
Well, thanks for having me on them. Really appreciate it. We started in 2008, so we've been doing this for 17 years now. And when we started, we were just dealing with new books. We still are. Our cutoff is a book has to be within like 60 to 90 days of its release date for us to consider it. With that in mind, we get about 1,500 books a month in. Our team of reviewers is about 80 adult reviewers, I think about 60 kid reviewers right now. And we review probably about 300 books out of those 1,500 every month. We don't judge anything in there. Self-published books coming in get treated just the same as the latest John Grisham book. And same thing on when we publish them. There's no difference in between the two. Like Kirkus Discoveries does only paid self-published books, and then Kirkus is Kirkus. We don't make that distinction. Why do you get a book reviewed from a publication or from a newspaper or the like? It's authority. It is somebody whose job it is, or who is, I won't say part-time, but most of my reviewers are not full-time getting paid to just do book reviews, but they've been doing book reviews for 15 years. We have a lot that have been sticking around that long. So that is a professional person who's reading your book, not to see whether they enjoy it or not, though that is part of it, but how well is the book written? How well is it designed? How well is it put together? Has it been edited? Has it been edited twice? All of those things matter. Are there mistakes? And once you have that review, then the question is, what do you do with it? It's a good source for a blurb on the back cover. It's a good source for a press release. It's good to put on your Amazon page. And you get to put those reviews, the editorial reviews, on your Amazon page in a way that you can't do with your reader reviews. Your reader reviews show up at the top. You got 1,500 of them. You got 3.5, 4.5 stars. That's fine. Somebody can click through and go look at those. But those editorial reviews are right there. And if you go through, especially the big trad books that are on there, they'll have 10, 15, 20 quotes all there as you're scrolling down to tell you why that book is important to read. And it tells you who it came from. And that is a part of, I think, the book reviewing or the book reading public uses to figure out which book they want to read without actually clicking through to see, okay, who does some random person somewhere else in the world like this book or not like this book? I don't know. So that's kind of the pitch there is why do you get a book review? There's, what happened with us and with others is as we started, most of the local newspapers got rid of their book editors. And I've been watching them slowly fall over the last decade and a half till the point where I think most newspapers just get their book reviews from the AP. And the AP is, does maybe 40 reviews a month, I think. And those are scattered out and they're all the big books. So there's nobody doing small self-published books, small press, etc., other than, organizations like ours. And so that's kind of our differences is that we do everything. I think we have 45 different genres on our list. And we'll fill them up, and occasionally we come up with a new genre that we just did not realize existed. Romantasy is a new one. We haven't quite given it its own category yet, but it's probably going to do it because there's enough books coming out in that category consistently that we want to be able to target those readers and be able to say, hey, look, here's the latest good romantasy coming out that you should be reading. When you were asking about what packaging is like and what reviewers are up against, and it even works with the large publishers, is most of the time a book comes in an envelope. Half the time, 3/4 of the time, it's got a sell sheet in there. Mm-hmm. That's it. And that's not bad. We at least know who the book came from. We have a bit of information about the author. We have a publicist email, hopefully, or an author email. That last third, those books are showing up, and unless we go digging, we don't know who sent them. You get a book from Macmillan, it just comes in a Macmillan envelope. There's no publicist information in it. The question is, are we going to dig for that? And then it gets worse with the self-publishers because I can at least find every Macmillan publicist that has sent us a book in the last year pretty easily. You send in a small press book, self-published book, and you don't give me your information, I can't tell you whether we're going to review your book or not. That if we review your book, I can't tell you that we did. So that contact information is critical when you are sending out books for review. The other part to that is, what's your package look like? I mean, not every day. I would say at least once every month, every 2 months, we get a package that makes my receiving clerk go, oh my God, check this out. Comes in a box. The box has a wrapper on it. The wrapper is all about the book or something else. You open it up and there's extra in the book or extra in the box. There's a pen, there's candy, there's tea, things like that. And once you kind of block the system with that and you make somebody say, look how cool this is, the rest of the office takes a look. And that oftentimes will end up kicking up that book to somebody else who's going to say, yeah, I'll take that book because I'm not just interested in the book now. I want the whole package. I realize that's expensive. But if you are working on a book, let's go back to Mary's example of you're working on a book about gardening or has a gardener in it. And you put a package together that has some toy gardening equipment in it. And you're only sending out 10 or 15 of them to the places that you think are best likely to review your book, you will get more attention. It will stop. It's in the old system. I've been in retail for like 30 years. We used to get what they called lumpy envelopes. So you get a flat envelope and there's something in it you can tell, and you open it and it was always a pin. But the idea, we're always coming from pin companies who want you to buy 100 pins with your name on it and stuff like that. But you always opened it because you wanted to see what was in it because it wasn't flat. Same sort of thing. Send a package. put a sticker on the outside. Put a sticker that has something interesting on it, or that and those are cheap. But you want to be able to create a little bit of a buzz in the office that you're sending it to, and you don't have to do out 500 of them. You're not sending them to every place, but you send that to a bookstore. A bookstore's going to pay attention to it a bit more than they will on just anything else. So whether you're doing it with ARCs, you're doing it with final copies, just make your package stand out a little bit more. Make sure you have your contact information. Give them something to hook. I have shopped at your store before. I have always loved X. I have your tote bag. Whatever you can do that creates that contact between you and the place you're either getting a review from or you're trying to sell the book from, that is probably the thing that, in my experience of doing reviews for 17 years, is the thing that catches my eye more than anything else is, does the package look good?
Those are those great upfront boxes where they give you all kinds of goodies and stuff just to get your attention.
I mean, I will upfront say bookmarks don't cut it. And we oftentimes get one with a bookmark and the like, or a handwritten note, and that's nice. But little package of M&Ms, guess what? I'm probably hungry by the time I'm opening up this box, and that will make me pay attention. It does not take much, but I still have, in fact, I'm having to move my office right now. I still have 3 or 4 boxes over the last 15 years that I kept because the boxes were so cool and I knew my grandkids would use them and play with them. And like I said, call it 1,500 books a month times 10 years, 15 years. That is a lot of packages that come through. And so when those things stand out that much, that is a big deal. The only one, and I still regret it, is we got an ARC package for the Hunger Games at the very beginning when we started, and I sent that off to a reviewer and I didn't keep it. That is my got away story.
So the thing is, send candy or toys.
Send something. It doesn't have to spend much. I mean, but if you're already spending $6 on a box and packaging, and your postage, throwing trinkets in that you buy, at a teacher's supply store or something, just increases the value of it way more than the cost of doing that.
And that's how you get reviews, toys.
That is a way to get yourself from the bottom of the pile to the top of the pile.
That's awesome. I love that.
I love that. Thank you, Roz. Because of something Roz was saying about on your Amazon page, I think I'm going to go to Penny next because she's going to talk about Amazon. Penny Sansevieri, I have known probably longer than anybody, almost, when I started getting into publishing, because she was handling someone I knew and he said, "Oh, you need to contact her." And we've had a really good time staying up on top of things. This woman is a wizard on Amazon. She's CEO and founder of Author Marketing Experts. She's got 24 books out, and they're all on Amazon, aren't they? Except a couple.
Quite a few of them, yeah.
Yeah. She just floods the market because she wants to make sure everybody knows how they can succeed in Amazon. So we were talking, and I said, she said, what about the power of the Amazon page? So Penny, welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. And I want to piggyback on something, what Ross was saying, just before we dig into Amazon. One year we had an author who had a book, it was a romance, and it was about a cookbook author, and she inserted recipes at the end of every chapter. And one of the recipes was for orgasmic cookies. So she went to a local bakery. She was in Los Angeles. She went to a local bakery. And I remember one season I had stacks of these cookies in my office, and I was literally boxing them up for reviewers. Like, can you imagine getting a book with cookie? I mean, it was amazing. And the reviews that she got, across the board, and the numbers were amazing, so huge. So yeah, skip the bookmarks, go for snacks, just put that out there, and fun swag. So what's interesting is that a lot of times authors will kind of set it and forget it. So they'll upload their book to Amazon and be like, oh, like I made the finish line. Look, I have 24 books, 25 coming out soon. I have a lot of books out. I get it. By the time you get to that finish line, you're kind of done, right? You're kind of like, oh, let's just let Amazon take it from here. Well, guess what? Amazon does not take it from there. And there, there's a number that's circulating, and it's staggering how many books are published every day. But this gets even more granular. So there's a book published like every 8 seconds in this country. How crazy is that? So when you think about that, you think about, so let's say only 90% of those books wind up on Amazon. So they're all, getting uploaded. They're all crowding the Amazon bookshelf. And the majority of those authors, I would say, a very high 95, 99% of them do set it and forget it. They're like, you know what? I'm going to let Amazon take it from here. When an author comes to me and they say, I'm running Facebook ads, or I'm running other social media ads, or I'm running Amazon ads, and I'm getting a lot of clicks, but I'm not getting any sales. Like, there's a lot of people going to my Amazon page, but nobody's buying my book. That tells me that there's something wrong with your retail page. Your retail page has to convert. You have to get people to buy. Amazon doesn't care if people buy your book. Amazon just wants them to buy something. And not to make Amazon like the big bad beast, but they are there to sell something. And whether it's your book or your competitor's book, they really don't. They don't care, right? Whoever has the best retail page, whoever resonates best with the readers, things like that. So think about I have a whole talk on keywords and categories, which can dip into just a little bit here because it gets really far down the optimization rabbit hole. But think about like your book description. So Ross just talked about reviews, right? People like what other people like. Okay. So lead your book description off with a standout review. Okay. And that is something. So even if the reader has no idea who the reviewer is or the review source, people like what other people like. Lead with a standout review. Keep your book description really succinct to your book, which I know sounds kind of obvious, but you would be amazed how many book pages that I look at that I'm like, I still don't know what this book is about when I get to the end of the description. And that's something that, Mary talked about in her segment is you got to know your reader. You have to know what resonates with your reader. Absolutely. So writing a book description, your book description is not about you, even though it's your book and you work very hard for it. It has to be about what appeals to your reader. And that is something that will literally change your life in terms of how well your book sells on Amazon. Even things as simple as white space or bolding or bullet points, if you have written nonfiction, those things help. Remember that we don't read, we scan when we're online. So you want to make your book description also scannable, right? So it's not just one paragraph and it's jammed all this text together and it overwhelms the mind. Okay. So the next thing is going to be, and I'll talk about Author Central in just a second, but the mind is a visual processor. Okay. So Amazon A+ content, whenever you have access to it. Now, some of you may have a publisher that has to do it. Some of you may not, if you're not in KDP. So Kindle Direct Publishing, which is Amazon's publishing portal, there's access that you have on the back end to be able to upload the A+ content. And if you're sitting there thinking, what's A+ content? So A+ content, if you've ever looked at a book retail page, and now that we've talked about it, we're talking about it, you're going to see it everywhere. It's kind of like you see the red car that you want to buy, like, oh, there it is. 5 times I saw that today. A+ content is visual content on the Amazon retail page. So it's about halfway down, and it can be anything from, book awards or benefits of the book or an excerpt of the book, characters, whatever. You'll see it across the board on different, retail pages. What it does is it helps to it helps to keep the reader on the page longer, which helps to convert them. It also helps the reader to better grasp what your book is about. Now, hopefully your book description hit that out of the park. But sometimes the readers need an additional nudge, and Amazon A+ content can really do that. It also helps to take back more of your Amazon retail page, which if you look at any book retail page on Amazon, Amazon loves to cram all kinds of other things on that retail page. Again, because their goal is to sell you something, right? And when you put that A+ content on there, it helps you to take back more of that page, right? Now, the other thing that you want to do is get to know Amazon Author Central. So if you have published a book on Amazon, regardless of how you published it, whether you've gone through a publisher or you uploaded it to Ingram Spark or KDP or whatever, you have access to Author Central. So it's author.amazon.com. The URL is memorized in my browser. It's kind of like how we don't remember phone numbers anymore because everything's just a button in our phone. And your login, if you've never been there, your login is just your standard Amazon login, right? You can go in there and change up your bio, amplify your book description if you feel like your book description needs work. Adding editorial reviews. So when City Book Review sends you that review, right? You can add it certainly to your Amazon retail page, or you can add like an excerpt from that review to your Amazon retail page, maybe one sentence, really appealing sentence, right? And then add the full review to the editorial reviews. Again, psychologically, right? People like what other people like, but it also helps to take back more of your Amazon retail page in terms of the space. You have all these reviews, you have this beautiful visual content, and then you also have your author bio. So a couple things about your author bio. Put something in there that's relevant to your genre. So why did you write mystery? Or why do you write sci-fi or self-help or romance or whatever that is, right? Your bio is the start of your conversation to your reader. And a lot of times authors overlook that. They think, oh, I'll just put up a bio, it's fine, nobody's paying attention. And these are generally the same folks that don't upload an author photo. So you end up being that little gray box on Amazon that looks very impersonal, right? It's just kind of like you weren't paying attention. And here's something that my 25 years in business has taught me. Readers are very keen on details. The details matter to your reader, okay? So having an author photo, having a bio that has some sort of connection to the genre that you're writing in. You know, you don't have to be, I'm an expert in mystery or so. Like, I don't know. Like, I read Nancy Drew when I was growing up, and I've always wanted to write, you know, this was kind of my start down the mystery, you know, genre, whatever that is, whatever drew you to that is your connection to the reader. Going into the back end of your Author Central, you can add all of those enhancements. Now, even if you have a publisher that's added that for you, you may want to tweak it. You may want to change it up. Add your author website, okay? And a lot of times, so Amazon's a little funny about this. A lot of times Amazon will say, well, you can't actually add a URL, and they're never live because Amazon doesn't want a clickable link on their website to go to somebody else's website. So typically what I'll do is I'll put in, you know, www. For example, a marketing expert dot, and I'll write out the dot as opposed to the dot. And a lot of times that kind of bypasses the Amazon system. And you may find that also sometimes with reviews. So Kathleen was nice enough to send me a lovely endorsement review for my latest Amazon book. And there was a tiny little word in there that Amazon futzed over, right? They're like, oh, we just don't really, yeah, blah, blah. So it kept getting rejected. So sometimes you do have to play with the content a little bit for Amazon to get, you know, for Amazon to be like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is acceptable. It's basically the same review, and it was just like a spacing issue or something weird like that. Sometimes, you know, again, it's just the bots that are in the back end of the Amazon website that accept or reject, you know, but adding more content to your Amazon page is really, really key. And I would encourage you, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm running these ads, I'm not doing very well. You want to really pause all the ads until you can start to make changes to your retail page. And here's why. your Amazon, so Amazon takes their cues from Google. So Jeff Bezos was an early investor in Google, and pretty much everything that's on the Amazon website in terms of optimization and algorithm and all of these weird kind of nerdy terms that I love to geek out on mirrors Google. Okay. So if you are sending traffic to your retail page and that traffic isn't doing something, like they're not clicking and buying, right, downloading, Amazon's going to lower your relevancy score, and it's going to stop showing your book in as many organic searches. Okay, so that's a problem. That's another reason why you want to do it. The other reason why you want to be careful with that is that when you're running Amazon ads, if readers are clicking on your retail page and they're not buying your book, now Amazon knows there's an attrition, right? Not everybody that clicks is going to buy. That would be a high quality problem to have, right? But Amazon looks at the overall kind of score of how many people have just clicked off, and the majority of them, let's say, have. Your ads are now also going to cost you a lot more money, because Amazon's like, whoa, you're just going to have to pay more for that exposure, sunshine, because your book retail page is not doing what it's supposed to do. And I would say that the final thing is, and this does relate to optimization, but also to any ads that you're running, is make sure that you have a reader match. I mean, Mary led with that, right? The reader match is so important, but it's interesting how overlooked it is. And what she said is very accurate. Like, sometimes you go to these events, you're like, oh, I'm so surprised at who my reader is. And I get it. Like, we don't have, as authors, we don't have big market research teams to, make sure that we are exactly aligned with the exact right readers, right? You have to make sure that the books that you are pairing your book with when you're running Amazon ads are a genre match. That is so important, because that can impact also back to your relevancy score. It can impact the cost of your ads. It impacts absolutely everything, but it also impacts things like getting reviews. So if you think that your book is, say, hypothetically a cozy mystery, but it has some edge to it, it's not really such true cozy, but you're sending it to, a bunch of cozy mystery influencers on Instagram, you're going to get a really high rejection rate. So your genre match matters everywhere, but it also matters to your book description on Amazon. Okay, you want to make sure that your book description matches what the reader is expecting. Okay, verbiage, elevator pitch, things like that. It's going to matter to your A+ content. Again, make sure that you have a reader matches to, and it matters to your ads. And then, as I said, just off of Amazon, who you're pitching. It all makes a huge difference. It doesn't take an enormous amount of effort, but it does take some real thoughtful consideration in terms of making sure that your book, and didn't even talk about book cover, right? Let's leave that aside for now. Let's say your book cover is outstanding, but is it exactly right for is there a market match with your book cover? That's extremely important. And I've actually had authors who, like really successful authors, who will, if the book launches and they're like, oh, this cover is not right, they will pivot and actually upload a new book cover. Like, you know what? I think this one is going to be stronger. So learn from your mistakes. And as you continue to publish your books, it does get easier. We don't always want to have to get to a place where we're replacing a book cover on Amazon because it wasn't quite strong. But sometimes, we make mistakes. We think our books are something else that they, in different genres. And I have conversations with authors every week who are, have a genre misalignment with their book. So it happens. If you feel like this is you're definitely not the only one.
Yeah, that's one thing that's very hard for many writers, I've found, is
very hard.
making sure exactly where they are. They go, well, I'm in 3 or 4 genres. Well, what's the key genre? Okay.
Right.
Maybe you have secondary markets you can publicize to and promote to later, but what's the majority of it? That's where you're going to get the bulk of your sales.
Or they have a genre that doesn't exist.
Oh, yeah, that also happens.
That's like flat out, you're not allowed to do that. End of story. I know I sound like a huge buzzkill. Sorry. I probably won't get invited back to a panel again, but I'm telling you, you must pick an existing genre, full stop, because otherwise you're just going to be sit there out in Amazon and nobody's ever going to find you.
Right. Thanks, Penny. That's a lot of information and really good things. When you were talking about covers, leads right into what Adana is going to talk about with ebook promotions, because Adana found out that, well, Adana, I'm just going to introduce you. Adana is a poet and an award-winning poet, and also has the founder of ABM Collective, a boutique design marketing studio, and co-founder of Pro Book Launch, an AI-driven platform that helps authors optimize their books. Adana, talk to us now about ebooks. And I know if you could start with the cover, because I think so few people, that things you've learned talking with those companies have really been valuable.
Thanks, Kathleen. Yeah, actually everything I put together kind of pulls a little bit from Mary, Ross, and Penny's talk. So it's probably good that I went last because it sort of plays off of all of this. But yeah, I can start with covers. Covers are super important. I work with an ebook promotion site often, and I had been doing some ebook promotions and they were kind of falling flat, and I asked them why, and I gave them the book titles, and they critiqued all of the covers for me. And one of the things about Amazon that's so important is when you are scrolling through Amazon, those book covers are about an inch tall, right? So if your book cover doesn't stand out, if it's not clear, if it's muddy, if it all of these things, it's not going to appeal to people to pull them in and want to even go to your sales page, which is this really super important kind of place where people land there. And just like anything else, it is that your first impression, and if you don't pull people in that moment, they're gonna move on. Reading habits have really changed in the last few years, and during the pandemic, we saw an increase in readership, and now we've seen a drop in readership just across the board as Americans. I found a really interesting stat while I was working on this, which is that in the last year, so 2024, only about 14% of people actually set a reading goal for that year. So that's a huge drop. It used to be much more than that. And I think that that's really important. And it shows that as authors, we're not only competing with other books and their wonderful covers, but we're now competing with Netflix and TikTok and podcasts and, audiobooks, even, just because we're not like reading, we might be listening, but there's so many other forms of entertainment out there that are pulling our attention everywhere. So when we're talking about ebook promotions, things that used to really elevate your book, you could run 1 or 2 ebook promotions at 99 cents, and it would have this real lasting effect on sales. And that's not true anymore. I think that when we're looking at Amazon, and Amazon has just had this shift to a new algorithm, which from A9 to A10, and this has really kind of shaken everything up. For us, for marketers, like we've had to kind of shift in the last 6 months or so and adjust how we do things. This is an interesting stat to me. So 14% of readers set goals. Only 70% of people on Amazon make it off the first page, search page. So if you're not doing things to elevate your book and really get on there, your books are invisible. Like Penny said, a book every 8 seconds is published. So we have to work really hard. That's bringing in everything we do from outside in, because the shift from the A9 to A10 algorithm is really looking at off-site things, like off Amazon, your website, your social media, your newsletter, all of that stuff kind of pushes into your Amazon and helps lift your sales. So when we're looking at ebook promotions, the things that used to work, you have to make this bigger. You have to run your social media ads, your Amazon ads, and ebook promotions all at the same time. You can't just run an ebook promotion and hope for the best. I mean, you might get a spike in sales, but that long-term visibility just doesn't last anymore. So I think when we're thinking about ebook promotions and how they work in today's market, is you really have to stack. And this comes down to the difference between looking at your book or your books as hobbies versus a business, right? Like, because you have to invest some money into these things to make your Amazon sales kind of hopefully explode. I mean, that's always the goal, right? Like, we want a bunch of sales, we want to move everything forward. And if we're not willing to invest in that, it's not going to work for you. So I think that in today's world, we really have to take a different approach. And I think that stacking and having ebook promotions run over the course of weeks with some social promotions and Amazon ads, and then also funneling your newsletter into it. So everything that you're doing at the same time is going into your Amazon, and that makes Amazon go, oh, this book's really important. Maybe we need to put it on that first page. Maybe we need to make sure people see it. And that's the goal with an ebook promotion. Is it's there's no point in doing it if you're not like looking at your entire platform. So that means you need an entire platform also in today's world. You have to have a website, you have to have some kind of social media, you should start growing a newsletter. And then, like Penny said, from your author bio, from your author page on Amazon, you can make this cyclical and lead people back from Amazon that might have found you on Amazon back into your social media, back into your website, into your newsletter. Offer them something really cool to sign up for your newsletter. There are lots of things out there that are really cool. One of my favorites is, especially if you've written fiction, is creating a playlist like on Spotify or YouTube, and sharing that as a link so you can really set the mood and world build into your book, and people can listen to it while they read, and you can build social media posts off of it. Like, there's so many cool things that you can do. And my advice is to always go into your genre and see what other people are doing for inspiration. Don't copy them exactly, but use what they're doing to help you figure out how you want to lead people along on your book's journey. Because that's what it is, right? Like, you're bringing them in, you're creating a community around the stories that you tell, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. I mean, you really want to create a world and have your readers feel involved. We're into a personal world right now because of social media. Like, people get to know us, and we really, really want to build that world and bring them in. And, whether you're nonfiction and you can help people and you have a story to tell, or you're fiction and you're building this really cool fantasy experience, like, bring them into that. And then, lead them into your newsletter, and then your newsletter can send them to your Amazon, and, it becomes a thing. They share it with their friends, and that's the goal. For me, I mean, when I'm working with clients through both my studio and through Pro Book Launch, I mean, everything I do every day is to try to help create and elevate other people's stories, not my own. I rarely get to work on my own. But my goal is always to coach and to give my experience to them, so we can create systems for them that go beyond their launch. I mean, a great launch is really exciting, but that's just it. It's a moment of excitement. We want longevity out of your book launch. And everything that I do as a marketer and as a designer is to try to create stuff for my clients that build from that, so they can have longevity and they can take this and really use it for their next books. Hopefully everything that I teach, I educate through like all of these moments where I get to be on panels, and I learn something from everybody that whenever I get to speak through them, like through the podcast that Kathleen and I do a podcast. I mean, I love books so much. Anyway, I think that my point is that, you know, ebooks are great. Ebook promotions are great because they really can help kind of jumpstart your sales, but you need systems around that, or that ebook promotion is not going to work for you the way that you were hoping. And so when you are looking at your book and you're looking at your sales, and you're like Penny also gave a stat, which I think it's about 99% of authors who publish do zero marketing. So, I mean, that's wild. That's a wild stat to think about, that the majority of books out there are not getting any dedication from their author. And that's ultimately what it is. Like, it's the difference between looking at it from a business point of view and a hobby point of view. And, you know, we have put so much work into our books, like they deserve us to keep kind of fighting for them and not just publish them and send them out into the world and hope that, you know, I like to say that as a hay in a haystack, that someone's going to find it in these millions of books that are produced every day, pretty much. So, you know, I mean, without systems, like your book will disappear. And I think that that's why we're all here, is to help you find the systems that work best for your book.
Right. Promotions are a really good way to try and sustain an interest in your book. Having it for like $1.99 or something in the beginning, running up some sales that way. I always find those really work well. So as we're going forward here, we're almost finished. Are there some wrap up things that, like, Mary, is there something you'd like to tell us? You're muted.
I did that because my dog was trying to bark a minute ago. No, I feel like, I mean, I was occasionally putting notes in my own phone based on some of your recommendations. So thank you very much. I think what you said there a second ago, you know, we're offering all this different types of ideas and information. And one of the first things I ask authors that I sign for my publishing house is like, what does your book launch look like for you? Do you want to be on podcasts? Do you want to be on social media? And I know we all can sit here and say you should, but sometimes people are older, or for whatever reason, they don't want to. I mean, I think it's good to think about, what do you want your goals to be? I think every writer would agree they want their book to be read, though. So, because that's one of the, but that might involve you go speak to local groups and you sell 10 copies, 15 copies here or there. I think it's a matter of, you know, you should put some effort into it, but decide which one of these avenues, you know, is good for you, and then pursue it. It makes me sad that, what would you say, 99% of books, people do no marketing. And we see them online. They just, you know, I always tell people, anybody can publish a book this afternoon if you want to, but who's going to read it? You know, you want people to read it. You got to think about your approach and alter it as you go on, depending how you're feeling, you know?
Right. Penny, any thought?
No, I mean, I too learned a lot from this session, and I'm really thrilled to be on this panel. I think that as authors, we really have to, I mean, it feels very overwhelming. So when you go to writers' conferences, you attend a marketing panel, it's like, oh my gosh, I have all these ideas. I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. So I would suggest that you know, walk away from this panel with like, okay, these are the 3 things I'm going to do. Right. These are the 3 things I'm going to start with. I have a list of 25, but I'm going to start with these 3. The other thing that I would really suggest that you do is keep a marketing journal. In fact, we have I do a podcast, and we just did an episode actually on tracking. And one of the reasons why I like to track everything, or I recommend to authors also that they track everything that they do, is because when something breaks and in a good way, right, and something just explodes and does really well, I can't tell you over the years how many authors I've talked to are just like, I don't remember what I did. So if you want to replicate it, if you want to try to like if something really worked, you want to be able to do that again and again, because not everything that we do works, right? We try some stuff. We're like, oh, I know everybody's really big on whatever it is, Goodreads or BookBub, but I didn't, it kind of left me like, I didn't really have a good experience. I didn't get a lot of reviews or whatever it is, right? Find your own path, and your book at some point will really show you kind of where it needs to go if you're getting out there enough. And that's where keeping this in some kind of a list is going to really benefit you down the road, especially as you have more books coming out and you're like, oh, I did these 10 things and this worked really well. The other 7 things that I did, I'm just going to forget about those because those didn't, those didn't do well for me.
Yeah, it's good to track. You have to track what you're doing and know,
You have to track,
to verify it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're spending money, you need to know if it was well spent. Did I get results or not?
Right, exactly. And I would say that, the other thing is if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true, because there's a lot of people out there trying to scam authors to make a buck. And I think that before you hire somebody to help you market your book, if that's the route that you're going to go, to do anything, even if it's cover design, whatever it is, ask some smart questions and look at other authors they've worked with, because I'll tell you, I get them too. I had somebody want to turn my book on how to get published into a movie. I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. Like, I'm sure people will be, it's going to be the next Star Wars. People are going to be lining up for that movie. It's crazy. So ask smart questions for sure.
Smart questions always help. Ross, any quick final thoughts?
I think the one thing I realized after listening to everybody that I didn't bring up, that's specific to what I'm talking about, is use reviews to tell you who your audience is or the things that you need to do to change your book. A bad review is not necessarily that we don't like you or your book. It is, here are some issues that need to be done. Or, our kids, weirdly enough, without being told, always at the end of their reviews say who the book is for. And they give a specific. This would be good for a 4-year-old who likes dinosaurs. Okay, yeah. It's a very narrow thing, but kids who like dinosaurs is a search term. And if you have that on your A+ page, then people who are searching for books for their kids who likes dinosaurs. So in between those two things is, yes, if you get, say, 5 professional reviews, you're going to get 5 different ways to market your book, because each one of those is going to be somewhat different about telling you who that reviewer was and what they took away from it, or who they think it is for.
Yeah.
And then the other part to it is that negative reviews are a learning experience. Every so often we do a negative review and the author wants to argue that we're not qualified to read his book. The reviewer wasn't qualified to read his book. Fill in the blank, all the various reasons why. We come back to, no, your book really sucked. Okay. Yeah. By the time I get involved, I actually have to read like a third to half the book. And my usual response is, no, reviewer was right. You needed 2 more rounds of editing. You don't know how to do dialogue. And besides, punctuation is not your friend. But that's the other part to it is that good reviews help you sell. Bad reviews help you make a better book.
Yeah.
He's absolutely right, by the way, because I tell you, there's so much that you can learn from. And negative reviews are not fun. Like, I get it as an author myself, but man, you can learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
It's not just Ross trying to be mean. Yeah. They're really trying to be helpful.
Dana, any last quick thoughts before we leave?
Yeah, I think that when you're looking at doing things like ebook promotions or any kind of promotions, make sure also that your book leads people where they need to go. You can put your website in the back of your book. You can also invite people to follow you on social media, especially if you have an ebook. Think about ways to make sure that your entire network is kind of this circle. So, wherever they find you, they can find your book, they can find you on social media. So you can use all of those platforms to drive people to where you need them to, which is mostly Amazon, bookstores. I mean, if you're going to do book signings, all of that kind of stuff, like how are anybody going to know you? So, you know, to have really successful like ebook campaigns, having your social media or your website or your newsletter or all of it. I mean, like Mary said, I mean, not everything is for everyone, but I really believe that you have to have a website. You should have at least one social media. You know, I'm much more comfortable online. I don't really want to go talk in bookstores, but you know, some people only want to go talk in bookstores, but you still need to drive people there. Like in all of the places that you're doing, you have to drive people there. So, I mean, when we look at things like any kind of promotion that we're doing, we're running social media ads, we're running Amazon ads, we're running ebook promotions. All of that is to drive your sales. So, how are you
Yeah.
supporting that?
Okay, well, we're over time, so thank you very much. I appreciate everybody, and I hope that the people watching learn something. Thank you.